short story, Joe Buccino.
In the 1970s, musician Randy Newman wrote a song entitled Short People. Went something like this. Short people got no reason to live. They got little hands and little eyes. They walk around telling great big lies. Well, I don't want no short people around here. Contest Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, guests. I hated that song. It could have been written about me. As a freshman, I stood at 41 inches, the shortest kid in my entire high school. While the other kids were screaming down the Matterhorn at Disneyland, I had to endure listening to It's a Small, Small World over and over. One great advantage of my vertically challenged height was that while the other kids were walking from class to class on campus, I had to run. Consequently, I became one of the fastest runners in my school. Now, I loved baseball, and that speed enabled me to make it to the JV team. And the position I played was bench warmer. I was the pinch hitter. When one of our batters were struggling, coach would call me up and say, "Joe, get in there, crouch down, just stand there, and don't swing at anything." Sure enough, I drew a walk and got on base every time. But then one day he called me into his office and said, "Joe, found out there's this little-known regulation known as the Newman Rule, which requires baseball players to be a minimum of 48 inches tall. I'm afraid we're going to have to cut you from the team." I was dejected. My baseball season cut short by 7 inches. Disappointed, I went home sobbing to my parents. My shortcomings were just overwhelming. My dad put his arm around me, and in his Italian voice he says, "Joey, don't worry. We know somebody. We're going to help you." And my first thought was he was going to send Uncle Vito over to get the coach to change the rules. But no, he had a different plan in mind. That summer, while the other kids were out enjoying their summer vacation in the sun, my parents sent me to a facility that resembled a greenhouse with dark windows all around it. I was greeted at the door by a well-dressed gentleman who ushered me in and escorted me to a room that was filled with warm yellow light. He put me into this cocoon-like hammock. While I couldn't move around much, it was actually quite supportive. Every day, he would lay this putrid-smelling board across my feet. I asked him, "What is that?" He called it stinkwood. Once a week, he would come in and inject 1 cc of a cloudy blue liquid into my toes. Surprisingly, it didn't hurt me at all. That man was a true expert in his craft. After that, he gave me this sweet little green liquid in a 1 centiliter container, that's 1 cl, to drink. It tingled all the way down and made me warm from head to toe. It was actually a positive experience. This went on for 10 weeks. At the end of that time, he came over and he says, "Joe, it's time to be inspired." He walked me over to the measuring chart against the wall. Where I had entered the building at 41 inches, I now stood above the 48-inch mark. In 10 weeks, I had grown over 7 inches. What a success! That next school year, I marched proudly into that baseball coach's room, filled with self-confidence and eager to demonstrate how I had personally grown. The coach looked me up and down. He said, "Joe, how did you grow so quickly?" I smiled and looked at him and said, 10 cc's and 10 cl's, administered in a positive and supportive environment by the Stinkwood Go Master.